You are listening to Trophy Horse with your hosts, Tricky Mick, Alex, I Yield to No One, Sid, and Ender Phoenix.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Trophy Horses, episode 608. And I'm back hosting, which means, unfortunately, no, Tricky, I did not hear the music.
Well, why are we going to hear it?
I guess I must. Did anyone hear that?
No, he's not in. We're not going to hear the music.
All right, well, I will start over again, Tricky. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Trophy Horses, episode 608. I'm your host again, Alex. Tricky is not feeling up to recording tonight, so unfortunately we're out at Tricky second week in a row. But if you want some good feedback on Helldivers, well, we got quite a few opinions on that. Probably first and foremost in that regard is I Yield to No One.
For Super Earth!
And another one of our podcast hosts fighting for Super Earth, it's Matt. Matt, are you muted?
He's muted.
There we go. You know, this is just that kind of night. The thing I was asking the crowd before I was so politely told that my microphone wasn't working was spreading democracy throughout the galaxy via bullets.
Well, there's some nasty creatures out there, and well, you can't turn them with high fives and handshakes. You just got to use some kind of rifle. I have also bought Helldivers. I think everybody on this podcast has bought it, but Tricky, and that's because I think Tricky's been warned that there are spider-like enemies. That's always his first question when it comes to bugs. Or games with bugs? Are there spiders? Tricky did buy it. Okay. So Tricky is currently playing for those. Tricky is not able to chat with us tonight. He's running the show in the background. He's producing. So he's saving Metropolis. He's playing some Suicide Squad, if that's considered saving Metropolis. But he did buy he did buy Helldivers. So it's the first game in a long time that I can remember that every single host of the show has owned. So it'll be interesting what kind of content and discussion we have over the next few weeks as we all, I'm sure, find a way to play together. But Yield Matt. How have your weeks been? It's been a week. Doesn't seem like a week. It seems like a couple days, but it's been a week. I didn't ask you, Cosmo.
Well, I've been playing a lot of Helldivers, too.
And Matt, you making it through the week, sir?
I think I made it through the week. It was quite a week, and I got quite a couple more weeks coming up. So it's nice to have a game that makes you forget about the daily grind.
Well, it's not as easy, life when you're back to your grind when you're used to being on a ship on the open sea, eating some buffet food.
I still think I have my sea legs. Everything feels wonky.
Well, hopefully you get your landlubber legs back soon enough, or just keep sitting in chairs. That'll save your legs from save you from falling down the stairs. But guys, we're back again, episode 608. Before we share with everybody, or at least you share with everybody how Helldivers is, why don't we update everybody on our trophy counts?
Sounds
Tricky.
Good.
Were these updated?
Yes.
All right. Awesome. Who do we have to thank for that?
Me.
All right. Thank you, Yield.
You're welcome.
Like to give that proper credit. Tricky is a level 899 with a total trophy count of 29,847 and a platinum count of 826, still 2 behind Sid. I am level 501, total trophy count of 9,698 and a platinum count of 167 in 166 games. Yield, you're up next.
Newly minted level 506 with a smashing trophy count of 10,013 and holding steady with a platinum count of 182.
Matt, sir.
So I've now confirmed that despite being connected via my PlayStation account, or playing Helldivers on PC does not net me any trophies. So I am still at level 220, 1309 total trophies and 0 platinums.
Have you earned any Steam achievements by playing Helldivers?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
So some I'm not so proud of.
Oh, really? Well, like, what, get killed, get killed or lose so many times in a row, or get a death streak going?
Finish the tutorial?
That.
On PC, 100% of players have finished that one. But yeah, there's an achievement of being flung so far from an explosion.
I haven't got that one yet. I always end up smacking a rock or a wall and getting stopped.
I found myself in a very precarious position. But we can continue on with the trophies, so we'll get to Helldivers soon enough.
All right. That is a weird trophy to have in there because, I mean, it's not skill-based. It's just all luck-based, and it's not really like you said, a trophy you want to have because you're just getting blasted, halfway across the planet. But, we don't design these things. Sid is level 883, total trophy count of 26,509 with a platinum count of 828. Just, for those keeping track again, that's 2 above Tricky still. He's still leading Tricky. And I guess before we move on, congratulations should go to Yield because in the trophy looting group on Facebook, as part of the annual rarity event, one of the new things Gareth is doing like a platinum of the month, and Yield, pop vote of the community, with his Red Dead Redemption 2 platinum, took home the gold this month, or last month, I should say, for January, the top rated platinum trophy. So congratulations, Yield.
Thank you. That probably may be the only one I get, or the only vote from the community I get this one, unless I'm able to knock down Lego 2K, because that's a grindy one too.
You seem to be all about that grind recently, sir.
I see. My wife and I were talking about that earlier, and I seem to be stuck on games that require a fair amount of playtime.
Oh, Tricky also in the chat threatened to go earn 3 platinums if I keep saying that. Well, Tricky, you can't earn platinums when you're the only person enjoying playing Suicide Squad.
Shots fired.
I've seen the user reviews. I've seen their user review score for that game as well as the critic review scores. Neither one are good, so there's no saving grace there. But yeah, let's actually talk about a game that people actually want to play. PlayStation PlayStation exclusive, the biggest launch on PC that they've had, overtaking God of War. More on that later. Helldivers 2 is the biggest launch for a PlayStation exclusive game on PC, and both, like I said, everyone in the chat or everyone in the podcast owns it. I have not played it yet because my weekend schedule is really wonky. But both Matt and Yield have been playing quite a bit of it. Do you guys want to fight for who talks about it first, or you just want to decide with each other?
Go ahead, Yield, because this is going to be a lot of back and forth.
So, Alex, be forewarned, there is still connectivity issues, like if you're trying to hook up with somebody. So just be forewarned.
First day, I saw a news story that they were Arrowhead was in crisis mode, which is not a good thing to hear. You read that in a headline, and you're like, holy shit. But I think that so many people were playing the game that it was crashing the servers, and people were having trouble getting connected.
So it doesn't necessarily affect gameplay unless you happen to get some people in. Like my brother and a friend of mine was playing earlier today, and you could kind of tell like a couple of guys seemed a little like wonky walking. My buddy said when my brother joined his game, all he could see at first was his helmet and the gun. So you can still play it. It's just got a few issues, but co-op is absolutely a blast. And so I'm having a lot of fun with it. It seems true what they said, that it's going to be like winning a galactic war isn't going to be something that's going to be done relatively quickly. So I'm having fun with it. I'm having fun learning the new nuances of the game, because believe it or not, there is a learning curve to Helldivers 2, but it's not a frustrating learning curve. It's a fun learning curve. At least I think so.
So before we go to you, Matt, I'm not trying to brag or anything, but I was the first person in this community to get the platinum trophy in Helldivers 2 because I actually got it years, I think, before any of you all started playing. So I never got like the co-op aspect of it. I never got to play with anybody from the community. So since we all now have it around the same time, it'll be interesting to see how much more fun the game is to play with people as opposed to, randos online or just myself.
Definitely have your headset on.
I'm sure that strategizing and all that is much easier where you're in a group or chatting.
Not only that, but since you're third person, it helps communicating if you see the enemy coming from behind you and you're focused on the enemy in front of you. And let's say there's like a huge wave coming behind you. You could, let that guy know who's shooting somewhere else. Hey, don't back up too far, or I threw a stratagem behind you. Don't back into it. Or let the guys know where they're at so they don't cross in front of your fire and you put 5 in the back of his head. One of those.
Matt, it seems like you need to have your head on a swivel, sir. Do you have your head on a swivel?
No, my head was blown clean off after many different interactions. First off, just to go back to the chat, Rick does congratulate Yield passing 10K and said, no one's voting for Lego 2K.
So thanks, Rick.
So here's the thing about Helldivers. It teaches you trigger discipline very quickly. And it's very important. Because the one thing is this game has friendly fire, and you cannot turn it off. That's the entire point of this game. And what's interesting is I thought something felt very familiar. And I was like, there's something about this. And it turns out Arrowhead Studios, who made Helldivers and Helldivers 2, is the same developer of Magicka and Magicka 2. And why is that important? Because those were also co-op multiplayer games where you had to punch codes into the game to cast spells. And the spells could hit your fellow teammates, causing them damage. So it's nice to see how they've evolved their play style into a different genre. That said, this is the most fun I've had dying and killing my teammates in a game in a long time. And I'll give you this example. Buddy and I were playing, and I threw a grenade into a cornfield because it was there were bugs in there that needed to be no longer alive. And the bug jumped out, smacked my grenade, exploded it, not enough to kill me, but enough to fling me across the field. And as I was getting up, my partner, who was firing at bugs in my general direction, shot me in the side of the head as I stood up. Needless to say, that was not intended.
The one negative I can see from all of this is that you have to play with people because if you play with randoms online, the ability for people to be trolls is magnified with that. The ability for them to just come and want to just shoot you and kill you just because they hate life and they want you to hate life too. It seems like that is ever present if you're just playing with people you don't know.
Alex, the good thing is though, there is a block player function
within game, but not just on the PlayStation Network.
Correct. There's a social menu that you can go into, and you can, if not during the game, once the mission is over, you can then go block player.
Because
you can also set your server up, or not your server, but your game up to public or friends only. Right now, I'm kind of only doing friends only because we're all playing it regularly.
And here's the big benefit of the game. It's drop in, drop out. Meaning, if you don't like the match you're in, just drop out, go find another one. If you're playing with friends and there's disconnects, drop in, right back, and you're playing just as you were before. On top of that, because this was made by Arrowhead Studios for the PlayStation and published by Sony, and they decided that they wanted to actually make money, they launched it on PC as well, and it launched with crossplay enabled. So if you're on PC, you just have to connect to your PlayStation account, and boom, you're able to connect and play with your PlayStation brethren. And that is a huge boon to the to the population. And I'll say this. This is a live service game. And normally I hate that as a concept, but they're implementing it well. Because this is a $40 game that also has microtransactions and battle passes, but they seem to be a little more reasonable, whereas you can get a new helmet in this game for $2, whereas in Halo Infinite, which was a free multiplayer game, for like $15 or $20. And it just seems like Arrowhead kind of has their head on a swivel and understanding what the population wants. But I am also earning the premium currency in game like crazy. It costs 1,000 Superbucks for the premium war bond. I already have 500, 600 in game just from finding it or purchasing it using in-game money. So shortly, by the end of the week, I could have enough to buy the premium war bond and start using that. So they seem to be implementing it well. The biggest controversy is on PC. They've implemented an anti-cheat program, which everybody, and I agree, always says doesn't work. And the one that they particularly chose is a little troublesome in that it may need kernel access to your PC. And there's rumors that it doesn't get removed after you uninstall the game, but those have been debunked. And the game comes with an uninstaller that uninstalls the DRM. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. Those are the biggest controversies other than the server connection issues over the weekend. But it's launch week. What are they expecting?
Well, and it seems like Arrowhead respects its community enough to understand that, look, there are some ridiculously priced skins in Fortnite and Pokemon Unite. And, you know, Pokemon being the highest grossing IP worldwide can charge that and not feel bad about it. You also, you know, Fortnite is entrenched enough and is popular enough where they can pretty much charge anything they want for skins and people will pay for it. Helldivers, you know, the first game was really good. This game seems to be doing really well, but you can't go around charging, you know, 10, $20 for individual pieces of your armor. So they've got a good flow of people going. They've you know, like I said, fastest launch for a PlayStation game on PC. So, you know, they're like, hey, we will make, they seem to subscribe to the same idea that I do, is that you will sell more, you know, it's better to sell more for less than to try to sell to one or two people for more.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Alex, something I wanted to tell you when you go to play, because the game doesn't tell you this. We figured it out. So you press square to reload. If you press and hold square, not all weapons, but some weapons allow you to change from automatic, semi-automatic, burst, or single shot. You can change, if you have a scope, you can change your depth of your scope, like 50, 75, 150 meters. And some guns you can change the RPMs of how fast the bullets come out. So you just got to press and hold square, then it brings that option up. Just FYI.
Okay, good to know. Because well, gentlemen, before I trudge on further with what I've been playing, have you guys been playing anything else besides Helldivers?
I played some Rocket League on Wednesday because I knew Helldivers was coming out, and that was going to take up my whole entire time. I meant to play some Skull and Bones beta, but that ain't happened. I've been playing too much Helldivers. I've been playing that. I played some Truck Driver, working on the Heading North DLC. I've been working on the original Helldivers. Went over to a buddy's house on Saturday and was playing with him to help him get his 100,000 kills. What else? I know there's something. I've been playing KO, the Kangaroo, and Helldivers 2. Oh, and some Lego 2K Drive.
And Matt, anything else you need to round out your playlist for this past week?
Mostly just some Power World, as well as Baldur's Gate 3 and Warhammer Vermintide 2. That's really what I've been doing.
How do you have time for much else? Those are all big games.
Yeah, you just don't sleep.
Oh, that's the secret. See, I've been going on like 3-4 hours of sleep for like 6-7 months to play games and watch TV. But if I cut it down to 0, you are right. I could probably get some trophies faster. Different way from what you've been playing, Matt. But yeah, I mean to get into Helldivers soon. Been playing, like Yield said, some Rocket League. They have an event going, a crossover with Star Wars, specifically The Mandalorian. Got some cool free items in there, actually better than I think the ones that are in the premium shop that you actually had to pay for. So it is nice to have some of the free items actually, in my mind, outrank the ones you have to pay for. Then played more of continuing my slog through A Plague Tale Requiem. Still feel the way I felt about that game, but ever since Hugo and Amicia have kind of become connected again, where it's like the adventure is about them and they're kind of co-oping together. The dialogue is a lot less annoying. So, but overall, I still feel the way I would do about the gameplay. But yeah, I'm gonna see this through to the end. Definitely not turning me off in the ways. There's only a few games I've ever quit playing because the NFL Blitz by EA, the Metal Gear Solid collection on PS3. Yeah, so it didn't happen very often, but I figure I could get through this to see the end of the story and collect the platinum trophy in the end. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me. What do y'all say we jump into our latest topics? And I'm not going to lie, I'm going to skip the first one because I don't think it's worth mentioning. So get wrecked, Tricky. From Software. We all like From Software. The parent company of From Software has acquired Octopath Traveler developer. This is written by Ryan Dinsdale over at IGN.com. From Software's parent company, Kadokawa, has acquired the studio Acquire. Acquire was acquired. Isn't that neat? Best known for the Octopath Traveler games, the studio has also produced some No More Heroes Allowed VR, Akiba's Beat, and Akiba's Trip Undead and Undressed. Yeah, Octopath Traveler, I think, is a very well. It's like what, Switch only, Matt? Was it Switch only?
It was a VR game, so I don't know.
Okay.
I stopped following. Why am I drawing a blank on the goddamn game? No More Heroes. I stopped following it a while ago because I know No More Heroes 3 was a thing that was coming out, and one I kind of dropped off of. So I don't know. Yeah,
I tried playing No More Heroes at one point and never finished the game I was playing. I think it was the second one, and I was just like, I just don't want to play any more of this. But yeah, a smaller studio that does have, earned, even though if they're not a household name at this point, has earned a lot of respect because Octopath Traveler is always talked about very well. So, I don't know what Kadokawa plans to do with this, but if they're looking to expand their portfolio on top of From Software, not necessarily a bad studio to purchase.
Yeah, and with that comes extra talent that they could use for their mainline series games. It's nice hearing purchases being done, but I also wonder if in a month we're going to hear about, or whenever it's done, whenever the purchase is done, and we're going to hear about Elden Ring laying off people in their studio, even though the Japanese developers tend not to have as many as more Westerns.
Yeah, you remember Luminous as part, they spun off of Square Enix. I don't think there were any layoffs from that studio after Forspoken. They just brought them back in, correct?
Good question. I should probably research that.
I can look that up. But I think that, the hope is that a smaller studio like this, under a parent company, will be able to. Sorry, Tricky's writing stuff in the chat. He says they merged with another studio, but I still don't remember any layoffs from that, but I'll have to look it up. The hope is that a smaller studio like this will maybe get some more freedom or have less risk at being part of a larger parent company. I guess that. Okay, Tricky confirms no layoffs report. Thanks, Tricky. You never know, because obviously with a parent company in control, there can be layoffs, and it's not the decision of the studio, but hopefully with more funding, the studio can actually, flourish, continue to flourish, and do greater things, do bigger things, take more risks. That is the hope, but we'll just have to see if that happens. I know that Yield is particularly averse to hearing about mergers, but Yield, is that more just kind of the Western companies because we're so used to everybody, laying everybody off?
I believe so.
When does anyone remember the last time we heard of a non-Western company laying people off? I mean, I know Sony shut down the Team Ico and made Team Asobi their lead studio in Japan, but I can't really think of any company that laid anybody off outside of Europe or the United States. I see Matt's looking stuff up.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because I typed something into Google and the first thing that came up was a Reddit thread saying why Japanese studios aren't laying off staff. LinkedIn,
because they're not some cowboys like us Americans where they just hire up like crazy. And
yeah, it's a lot of them are linking to an article from LinkedIn, so I'm not finding anything of value.
So we obviously don't see it as much in Japanese culture as we do here in the U.S. There may be some examples out there, but it's certainly not as prevalent, not an epidemic as it has been this last 14 months in the U.S. games industry and as well as Europe. But yeah, just it'll be interesting to see after this purchase by Katakawa what Acquire does. And I don't know if we should be looking forward to what Toys for Bob does because an IGN article written by Kat Bailey, the headline reads, Toys for Bob, future unclear amid studio closure and layoffs. The future of Toys for Bob, a studio known for their contributions to Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, and Skylanders, is unknown. A report came out that showed 86 workers had been laid off. This comes amid other layoffs recently announced, including those after the closure of Microsoft acquisition of Activision/Blizzard/King. And Microsoft finds themselves in a little fight with the FTC because, based on what I've seen, Microsoft was saying that although Microsoft owned Activision, that Activision was going to run kind of like separately. But now with Microsoft laying off all those people, the FTC is kind of crawling up their ass because they're like, wait a minute, this doesn't seem like Activision's kind of running itself. So yeah, Toys for Bob, one of among the casualties of those, I think it was 1,900 people laid off by Microsoft, the studio that made Crash Bandicoot 4. It's about time. Fantastic game. I mean, hard as fuck at times, but a really, really good Crash game. So yeah, I mean, they have a track record of making good games. Being able to make a Crash game after so long and make such a good one is quite impressive, but it's just one of those things, I guess, where, Microsoft is, and we figured it would happen, but Microsoft is going to go in and clean house because they, as much money as they have, their position in video games and what they actually want to do with the future of their consoles is quite in question now, as we haven't looked further down the agenda, but we may talk about it, we may not. But yeah, there's definitely questions about where Microsoft's heading with their video game arm, and that could lead into just depending on what they announce this coming next week. It could be a sign of more to come. But
more software, less hardware.
You mean less hardware, more software?
Or yeah, that way. Sorry.
Yeah. Matt, sir, I don't think it's on the agenda. Should we talk about that? About everyone's fears and concerns? Because it's definitely not on here. About the rumors. They're not.
It's a rumor, though.
Here's the thing. All we know currently is Microsoft said, we hear you. We have a business announcement next week. Wait till then. So until then, I'm not here to speculate. I am not here to cast rumors because that's all people are doing. It's really starting to tick me off that everybody is saying, well, this is what we're hearing. That's what okay, well, let's wait until Microsoft actually makes an announcement. That would be my recommendation. But, I'm one of three people on the show right now.
I agree with Matt.
No, I think that I've been out. I mean, I don't necessarily need to talk about it. Just throwing it out there. Just so people, for context, there's been a lot of rumors that certain Microsoft exclusives would be coming to PlayStation, which leads people to believe that Microsoft would eventually get out of the console business altogether, and kind of act as like a voluntary Sega, where Sega kind of became a software company, after, I hate to say failing in the hardware industry, but they did. They weren't able to successfully continue making hardware and had to just move to software only.
They went up against the juggernaut that was Nintendo.
Well, also you got to remember that was the PlayStation 2 era as well, when the Dreamcast came out.
Oh, okay.
So it was the GameCube. Yeah. Matt's looking like
Dreamcast came out
99.
Which was still...
It was before.
It was before PS2, but it was definitely on the tail end of the PS1.
Yeah. So it was, I guess, considered the same generation as the original Xbox, the PS2, and the GameCube, even if the others came out later.
And Rick says he wants Lost Odyssey to come with trophies, and he will be happy.
I don't think that was one of the games mentioned. At least not what I saw.
All right.
You know what? Let Rick have his hopes and dreams. But yeah, I mean, Microsoft, we talked about it. They've apparently shut down, amidst all those layoffs, they shut down their physical media division. Here, there, and everywhere, closures. I don't think anyone on this podcast but me played Crash Bandicoot, so I don't know how much you guys have to say. Oh, you have it?
I have it. I haven't played it, but I have it.
I just don't know if you guys have any thoughts on this or if you want to expound upon anything.
I mean, I played the Spyro reboots, and I enjoyed the heck out of them. So, I mean, it's disappointing that a studio that can do, good, I'm using the wrong term, good ports and their own individual games, because Skylanders was pretty popular at the time, and you said that Crash 4 was a good Crash game. It's sad that, they weren't closed because they had a failure. They were closed because someone else said you're done.
Yeah, I mean, I think they definitely could have done well under the Microsoft label, but for anyone who wasn't part of the layoffs, they might get moved elsewhere. There's probably going to be a lot of shuffling of talent around Microsoft, but I don't know. Just to consider, a lot of the issues when these big company merges, redundancies, but this isn't really like it's not like Microsoft had their own social media department and then Activision had their own social media department, and you don't need both. You just merge them all into one. I mean, this was a talented studio people, so having them go by the wayside is pretty shitty, but not something we find particularly surprising. Since Microsoft is now in charge. Matt, anything to say, or should we swing on to the next topic?
Whip, whip.
Well, we're whipping those webs because we're talking Spider-Man 2. This comes from Adam Bankhurst at IGN.com. Spider-Man 2 update coming next month will include New Game Plus and new suits. The next update for hit Spider-Man 2 comes on March 7th. Will include the anticipated New Game Plus, new suits, and more. Next up for the studio is tackling requests to change the time of day, swap tendril colors, and replay missions. Honestly, there are a couple things in there that I would think that would come out of the box, and that would be New Game Plus and replay missions. But, it's good they're adding them in there, but I know that they're not the first game to add New Game Plus later, because obviously we just talked about Alan Wake. I believe it was last week. Alan Wake was having New Game Plus added as well in a post-launch update, but it's just one of those things that Resident Evil kind of perfected New Game Plus, unless somebody can think of another game that did before them. But they kind of, as far as I remember, perfected New Game Plus, and Resident Evil 5 was so long ago. It's just kind of surprising to me when that doesn't come as a feature to the game. Evil West also had a New Game Plus that worked very well. So you see it incorporated in so many games that it's just like, why not just launch with it? I don't know. Am I expecting too much, Matt?
I don't think so, because I was reading the article, and unfortunately the article didn't go too much into what it was about, but they were trying to do things with the New Game Plus and make it work appropriately before they decided to delay its introduction. So I think the intent was originally to have it there, but it seemed like there were some technical issues, unspecified, that happened behind the scenes. As a result, they decided, all right, maybe we'll just delay it for a couple months. Why it took almost 3 months to do, I don't know. I'm not a game developer. So hopefully it's everything everybody wants and more. I'm good with the game. I played the hell out of it. I did most things that I want to do. So I probably won't go back unless it's later down the line.
Well, I guess that's the big question, because is there a certain amount of time after which the people will move on from the game before they're like, I played the game. Am I really going to go back for New Game Plus? Yield, is there, even if you enjoy a game, if the game comes out with New Game Plus 3 months later, are you really going to go back and play it unless you say need to do some stuff to get the Platinum Trophy?
Unless I need to do that, but a lot of times if you have to do that, that's tied into the game. New Game Plus is tied into the game originally. Not unless I have nothing to play, because they added New Game Plus in for both Horizon games down the road and tagged a trophy onto it, and I have yet to go back and go for them. So it's just not something that is super important to me.
Yeah, coming out with a DLC like a year or so later, like, it's brand new content. But when you're just like, hey, New Game Plus, play the same game you've already played, maybe just a little bit more powerful from the start, like, that doesn't have quite the same appeal as being able to play something that's entirely brand new. So brand new. I feel like when it comes to the topic of Disney, brand new is in short supply, because I feel like everything that Disney has been doing has been, hey, Star Wars this, hey, Marvel that. So for something truly brand new from Disney, I don't know. I'm just not feeling it these days, but maybe some good can come out of a collaboration, or at least an ownership stake in Epic Games. This comes from CNBC. Sarah Whitten wrote this. The headline is, Disney to take $1.5 billion stake in Epic Games, work with Fortnite maker on new content. Disney is investing $1.5 billion in Epic to make new games and an entertainment universe. Disney CEO Bob Iger indicated that there was probably the company's biggest foray into the game space ever. Remember, Disney did have their own game studio. So, quote from Tim Sweeney, Disney was one of the first companies to believe in the potential of bringing their worlds together with ours in Fortnite, and they use Unreal Engine across their portfolio, said the Epic Games co-founder and CEO. Now we're collaborating on something entirely new to build a persistent, open, and interoperable ecosystem that will bring together Disney and Fortnite communities. So, at the very most shallow end of the pool, you can assume that Disney is going to have more and more characters in Fortnite.
Yeah.
But behind that, it does seem like they have bigger plans. Matt, what do you take from this article?
I take that Tim Sweeney is not going to hire back all those people he laid off to work on this development with Disney. So, good on them for making their money and still screwing people over.
Yeah, but it's not like they're going to rely on Disney to make games. This is clearly a move from Disney so that they don't have to own their own studios and then shut them all down again, where they can still make money off games, but not actually have, like, they have an ownership stake, but they're not going to be, publishing or making those games.
Yeah, but Epic is still getting a $1.5 billion infusement into their business, so will be interesting to see what they do with that.
This is basically Epic's ability just to incorporate Disney into their, like, licensing into their games, right?
Yeah, I don't know. It seems like Disney is going to be giving Epic this money and saying, hey, we want to do this. And Epic will turn around and make the dream come true. So what it means by entertainment, obviously games they're gonna work things on. I'm sure that's gonna free Epic up to allow a lot more people to make it into Fortnite. But what else they come up with it'll be interesting to see. But Disney's definitely throwing their money around despite the losses they've had over the last year.
Yield, do you think anything good can come from this? Obviously, looking beyond Fortnite, because you don't play Fortnite, you want nothing to do with Fortnite. But do you think that anything good can come from this? Anything Disney can be like, hey, use this and make essentially a game out of it?
I want to say no, but I mean, Disney already shuttered the one developer they had many years ago that you and I both really enjoyed.
Well, they got rid of a lot because Warren Spector's Junction Point, or was it Junction Point? The Epic Mickey Studio, they closed them. They also closed Black Rock Studio.
Yeah.
So like I said, they had an entire video games division that were making games.
And they had ones that were making good games.
And they basically shut them down. So do you see this as anything more of like Disney being like, we want to make money off of video games, but we don't really know how to manage it, so we're just going to relay the information to Epic, and Epic can work their magic and make these games for us, and we can all rejoice and profit.
It kind of seems like it. I mean, I think Disney should worry about making good movies right now, either animated or movies, because they seem to all be tanking. Before they drop 1.5 billion into video games, but that's just my opinion. But that's what it seems like. I mean, because unless they have a vision of what they want to do with games or where they want to go, it just seems like them getting in with Epic now allows them to have Tricky pointed out they were doing it with Marvel and Star Wars. They were just probably more than likely just paying for those specific licenses. Now with Disney involving that much money, you're looking at their entire library that can be shoved into Fortnite and you can pay for and yada yada blah blah blah. And I mean, that's just my opinion.
Maybe it's a way for them to actually diversify given their losses. I wonder if they're trying to branch out and build some resiliency into their portfolio.
Yeah, some of the studios as part of the Disney, it was known as Disney Interactive Studios. Some of the studios that were lost in that include Propaganda Games, Avalanche Software, which was later reopened and sold to Warner Brother Games in January 2017, Black Rock Studio, which you mentioned, Fall Line Studios, Junction Point Studios, which is Warren Spector Studio, which did Epic Mickey and Epic Mickey 2, GameStar based in China, Creature Feep, Wide Load Games, and then Rocket Pack. So, I mean, they had quite a few studios that they just got rid of. But Matt, if they are trying to do things in the game space and they are giving Epic this money, do you not think that Epic's going to have to hire more people to take on this extra work? Or do you not think that Disney's going to say to them, like, hey, we want this, maybe are they not directing where this money is going? Say, hey, maybe use some of this to hire people? Or
I don't think they can. You're infusing money into a company that you have no power over. Maybe you have a financial stake in, but I don't think they can legally turn around and say, hey, hire some people for this. That would be a co-employment issue, and as a result, Disney doesn't want to manage any more people than they have to. So as a result, I think the infusement is in good faith that Epic will do what Disney is looking for. Whether that happens or not, it's kind of one of those things that Epic was looking for money to save their people or to save their business, and unfortunately had to reduce headcount to make costs come in line, despite all the money that Fortnite makes them. But who knows? Games obviously are taking a lot to make these days, and as a result, we'll see what happens when Epic, I guess, makes good on whatever Disney wants to do.
And I mean, this is like an ownership stake in the company. Like they are paying this money to have some sort of ownership in the company, right? Or did the article go into that at all? Because when you say a stake in the company, that's more than just giving them 1.5 billion.
Yeah, well, since they're publicly traded, they own them, but no more than a shareholder owns another company. Just because you own, and I don't think it's a controlling stake, so therefore I think it's just they have say in the way things get done. Whether or not that means that they hire more people, I don't think that's usually a power shareholders will have.
Yeah, I would assume that at this point, Epic is worth more than 1.5 billion, especially if they can take on Apple in federal court. But it's kind of a door opening partnership between Disney and Epic that could, bring a lot of cash flow into Epic, and we'll have to see what they do with that money. I can't think of the last time I spent any money on any Epic product. So, but I hope they're going to do more than just pump more characters into Fortnite, because they definitely could. Tricky is passenger seat hosting from the chat. Tricky, if you ain't here to host, shut up. But yeah, I hope something actually substantial comes from this, and it's not just a 1.5 billion as kind of a very shallow partnership. So Arrowhead and Sony seem to have a pretty strong relationship. Nothing shallow about that, given that Helldivers 2 is exclusive on home consoles to the PlayStation 5, and also releasing on PC, as we talked about. But may mention this earlier, but it's worth repeating. IGN.com Wesley Yin-Poole reporting, Helldivers 2 overtakes God of War to become Sony's biggest ever game launch on Steam. Helldivers 2 has become the biggest game launch for Sony on Steam. Arrowhead Studios game features cooperative action and launched on February 8th for $40. And I think that's a huge aspect of it right there, is $40. On Steam, the title peaked with a concurrent player count of 81,840, exceeding Sony's previous largest count of 73,529 when it launched God of War on PC platform. However, despite the success, Helldivers 2 was facing a swarm of mixed reviews and encompassing things from crashes, matchmaking woes, and the ever-notorious digital rights management system that was implemented. While the matchmaking issues have mostly been solved with a quick launch weekend patch, Arrowhead game director Michael Erickson says, We know there's more to solve, and we're working our way through it. Nevertheless, we hope this rapid patch goes a long way to making your experience better. So, I mean, Helldivers 2, a sequel to a game that came out many years ago. I mean, I played that back, 2015? It's been out for a long, long time. Obviously, Arrowhead's been busy with other projects, but going from one camera angle or one viewpoint to another, and making Helldivers a third-person shooter, behind-the-back shooter, it was a big risk. And having a funding partner, I'm assuming in Sony, definitely helps. But it's still a little surprising that this game would overtake something as popular as God of War. God of War has brand recognition. It's got a name out there, and people on PC didn't get to play any God of War game on PC before the 2018 God of War launched on there. So are either of you as surprised as I am that it's done this well?
First off, suck it, God of War. No. Secondly,
this is a PlayStation podcast, sir. We don't have to be like that.
Okay. I'm happy. It's a game, like I said, that I've looked forward to on the 5, and they've done a really good job of making it fun. So I'm really glad that more than just me and my group of friends think it's fun, that a lot of people are enjoying it. So that's where I'm at with that news.
And the launch woes, I mean, I guess Arrowhead's the one that handled the PC port. It wasn't like Nixie's or anybody else within Sony, but Sony titles have had technical issues when it comes to launching on PC. Now, I know that the game does have technical issues, but a lot of it seemed to stem from connectivity, which was, due to the fact that probably so many people have been playing the game. So excitement for the game, that's not a bad thing. Matt, your thoughts on the overall success of Helldivers 2 so far, as someone who, has played the game and seems to enjoy it quite a bit?
So I didn't even play Helldivers 1, and all of my hype has been driven by yield and some of the videos I've seen. And in the time that we've been playing it online, it is absolutely a blast to play. And the developers have promised for more content in the future, which, explains some of the monetization. But for it to pass a well-known, well-loved game like God of War, that actually is somewhat surprising. I mean, Pal World came out of left field and kind of surprised the world, but Helldivers came out and they've had some decent marketing, whereas Pal World didn't have any. And just
Pal World didn't want Nintendo to know they were coming.
There's that. But for Helldivers to get to where it's at now, and yes, there have been server issues. There was just a server issue today, and a long explanation by the developer saying, listen, there were more players than our tick rate allowed on the server, and it shut everything down. So we had to do a lot of maintenance, get some contracts in, get some expansion on the caps we put on the server, and they did a lot on their day off. Whereas, they literally made the promise, listen, we're all back in the office tomorrow. Just bear with us another couple hours. So the success really is driven by the fervor of this game. And I'll say, like I said, it's a live service game. But the interesting fact is all of our contributions, all of our progress is measured together. And if you didn't see Yield, we successfully liberated Heath, the first opening planet.
I did see that, because that's where I was working at Thursday, Friday. It was just, I'll do Heath first, and then we'll move on to the other planet.
So with each mission you create or you complete, it actually increases the percentage that you've liberated the planet on. And it's not a lot, but we got a lot of people working for it. So Angel's Venture is up next, and let's continue spreading democracy. Are
you trying to guilt me into playing because I haven't played it yet and I haven't been helping the cause?
You're right now. You're a commie bastard who hasn't supported the cause.
I always like the Heath Klondike bars. Those frozen desserts. Those are always pretty good. So I'm sad that I couldn't get in on that Heath action. But
Which is funny because Heath is a frozen planet.
Heath was a frozen planet.
Also very close to Hoth in name. So I wonder if that was any kind of
legally distinct, Alex.
Yeah, well, I'm not trying to get Arrowhead into kind of any legal trouble, but the immediate thing I thought of, Frozen Planet, Hoth, Heath,
You weren't the only one who thought that.
Maybe some inspiration. Let me ask a blunt question.
All right.
Is this game's success on Steam because it's a shooter? I'm not saying it's not fun, but do shooters do particularly well on Steam? Especially because God of War, you don't have to have a community. It's just you playing the game. With this, you have to have a community. Is that part of the reason why?
So here's what I'll say to that. There's 25,000 reviews on Steam. And at the start, it was mixed because a lot of people were downplaying it for the DRM, for the crashes, for all these other things. But it's now mostly positive, which tells you that people are having a blast playing it. And yes, it's a shooter. So as a result, you're going to have a little bit more popularity on PC. And I had a friend who tried playing it both with mouse and keyboard and controller. He tried the controller first. Mouse and keyboard is just phenomenally better on this type of game. So it's driven by the fact of price, which you said earlier, which is a huge thing. And also it's easy to get into on the PC. So people were looking forward to this game, and especially since it's a community-based game, us PC brethren stick together.
Well, who knows? Maybe Sony mentioned it the last 3 state of plays, at least in some form or fashion. Hey, don't forget about Helldivers 2. Maybe it actually really helped because, like you said, Matt, it had some pretty decent marketing. So, Yield, do you think that it being a shooter and shooters as popular as they are had any effect on its popularity?
Well, I mean, it probably helped on PC being a shooter. I think those who played Helldivers and enjoyed it was ready to jump back in when this game launched. I know I was eager to see the switch from, top down to third person. And, the explosions that they showed were like, oh, that seems like a lot of fun. I ain't gonna lie. I don't know about Matt. There have been times where we've gone to blow something up and, we haven't been being overrun by bugs or nothing, and I've sat there and saluted before the explosion goes off, just as in true Super Earth fashion, just for my own fun. But anyway,
Super Earth is what you make of it.
Yep.
No, and as far as the reviews go, like if there are server issues, you would hope that people would kind of hold off reviews and not completely or like amend their reviews to not give the game a bad review score because of some opening issues. Because a lot of games have server issues. It's kind of always hard to tell what your load is until the game is out there and people are playing it. So people firing off negative reviews because of server issues. I mean, I definitely think that is something that people should hold back on. But people on the internet, they don't often hold back. And when it comes to Sony and Microsoft and, the embers of the fanboy wars, they definitely don't hold back. Well, let's dump a little gasoline on that, why don't we, fellas, with this report from IGN.com and Michael Kripe. New data suggests that the PS5 has outsold Xbox Series X and S 2-1. According to a Take-Two Interactive earnings report, Sony's PS5 has outsold the Xbox Series X and S console by a factor of 2-1. In a slide, the company reported that 77 million Gen 9 consoles had been sold as of December 31st, 2023. Comparing this with a recent report by Sony celebrating 50 million consoles sold, it becomes easy to surmise the ratios. And, Yield, is it any wonder that with this information coming from Take-Two, an earnings call, like official shit, it's not just stuff on Reddit or 4chan or wherever. This is one of the companies that deals with both Sony and Microsoft on a business level. Is it not easy to see why Microsoft wants to get its way from physical media as fast as possible and just kind of get their games and their systems, xCloud and Game Pass, on everything possible?
I mean, it does. We've said this for the longest time, especially towards the end of the 4 and at the start of the 5, was that Microsoft just needed to make games. I mean, that was their biggest problem, was they didn't have any exclusives to their system that drove people to their system. So while the Sony ponies will be like, yay, we outsold them 2-1, and even me, a little bit deep down, I'm kind of like, yes, but still, Microsoft hasn't supported their console with games that people want to play. And had they done that, this figure would be a lot closer, in my opinion.
Well, I feel like when Microsoft, was touting victories over Sony in the console race, it was the PlayStation 3 era. And we know all the PlayStation 3 had its struggles at the beginning. And really, Microsoft's advantage that wasn't because they were putting out better games than Sony. It was because they had the better online play, the better multiplayer space, and because some versions of third-party games were better on the Xbox 360. So it's never been really the fact that Microsoft has put out better or more games than Sony. I mean, you can go back and look at the original Xbox through the 360, through the One to the X and the S. Sony's first-party slate every single round has just slaughtered Microsoft. But because Sony had its issues, forced you to spend more money on a PS5, you had to have the Blu-ray drive in there, and Microsoft launched it cheaper, and they had, like I said, they had Xbox Live. That really helped them gain a foothold. But going game to game, they could never match Sony, and that's never been the case. Matt, what do you think of all this?
I mean, this is extrapolating data from a corporate slide, so it is what it is. But it's no secret that PlayStation has been doing a lot better than Xbox this generation. It is what it is, and we'll be interested to see what Microsoft and Xbox have to say this week about all that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to remember that, competition is best for everyone. When big news hits with, when there's, big news hits like this, they bought this studio or so-and-so bought this studio. I mean, there is a little bit of excitement. But I think all the rumors swirling around Microsoft, like, it's really going to be whatever they announce is probably going to be huge. Even if they just reassure people, hey, we're still going to stay in the console space, blah, blah, blah. Hey, we're still, this, that, the other. But it feels like there's a major shift coming. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but it feels like the potential for a major shift. And let's be real, Microsoft has always been more adaptable than Sony, certainly more than Nintendo. So if any company is going to make that, Matt, do you
No,
gave me a look there.
I agree. No, that wasn't a look. That was a, yeah, you're right. It's.
I was just, there was the brush of the eyebrows, and I'm like, oh, does Matt need to cut me off here?
That was up. No, it's to add my 2 cents is Microsoft is more diversified, they're more resilient, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think that we also need to remember that a lot of their money has been made off of software. They've been a software company first for a long time, or we're always had that base. So Sony coming in with the hardware, the strong hardware, yeah, the strong software, but Microsoft through Microsoft Windows and all the stuff they did for PCs, software first. So we'll see what happens next. But I mean, I don't think given the success of the PlayStation 5 and I don't think anyone was necessarily surprised that PlayStation is outselling Xbox, especially when Xbox Game Pass is also on PC. Kind of shoot themselves in the foot there, especially when it comes to the home console market. If Xbox only had Game Pass on Xbox, you'd probably see the numbers a lot closer. But because PC, is a strong market and Game Pass is on there, it definitely does eat into the sales of the Xbox.
No,
Matt, were you?
That's actually, you can't be more accurate than that. I mean, I didn't play my Xbox a lot because I have a good gaming PC, and therefore Xbox on Game Pass on PC sustained me quite a bit. But you still can't argue that 33 million estimated subscribers isn't doing them any good. I mean, I think they're.
Oh no! I mean, let's be real. Microsoft knew when they launched Game Pass on PC that it would have this effect.
Yep.
And I'm sure that they're now using that as any kind of evidence they need to get away from the hardware market. Be like, well, we've seen this and we've seen how successful Game Pass can be, and we don't necessarily need a console box to make that happen. Yeah, again, we don't know anything yet, and we'll let Microsoft announce anything before we talk about it, which I'm sure because, even though this is a PlayStation podcast, what Microsoft does actually matter. It does matter in the game space, so I'm sure we'll talk about it in some form or factor. But Matt, you were saying you'll cover something. Are you talking about the topic of the week here?
No, the social media portion.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
We have one question, and then Tricky put together for us a list of comments of some of our TikToks and YouTube comments that wanted us to cover. So I got all that broken down right here.
Time
awesome, yeah.
to check my social media, yeah.
See, I was going to do it. I was going to do it from the heart. I wasn't going to have Tricky play the soundbite. I was going to be like, how to check my social media.
What?
Thanks, Stone Cold.
Anyways, so we have one
wants
question.
Me to do it again? Does he want me to do it again?
What? So we have one question from the Facebook posting that V did today, and it was from Gareth, who actually says, "Congrats to Yield on the Plat of the Month for January for Red Dead Redemption 2." But
I'll remember all you punks that didn't vote for Evil West. Not one vote. To be fair, there were only 4 games that got a vote, and my vote went to Liza P because Dupes got that. But
didn't you? You didn't vote for your own game?
No, I voted for Liza P because.
Oh, okay.
He has voting integrity.
Yeah. Well, some integrity.
I ain't gonna lie, I voted for my own game because I was proud of that.
No voting integrity.
Not last month.
What was your favorite platinum you earned from the last year? So, Alex, you first.
My favorite platinum that I earned from last year, I loved Weird West, but I think that my favorite platinum had to be Tales of Iron. Now, but you asked me on a different day, and I might flip that. But right now, in this moment, having played the Bright Fur Force DLC back in December, and just remembering how much I really enjoyed that game, and just the art style and the combat, I'll have to go with Tales of Iron.
Yield.
Oh wow. It'd be easy for me to say Deep Rock Galactic, but
well, you dumped enough time into it.
I did dump enough time into it. I had both Zombie Army games. I really enjoyed Ghost of a Tale. So I'm going to go with that one. It looked really good on the 4. Story was good. Supposedly we're working on a second. So I'm going to go with Ghost of a Tale.
Matt.
And for me, he asked what my favorite game that I played in the last 12 months, and I've got a slew of games to account, but I think I'm going to go with Baldur's Gate 3. Just from the multiplayer aspect and playing it with my friends has led to some genuinely fun and hilarious moments.
Matt, what are the odds that Pal World is going to be your game? When Gareth asks this next February, the Pal World will be your favorite game you played this year?
Probably not. Listen, I'm having a fun time with it. I set up a dedicated server. It is Pokemon with guns. And I have shot many pals in the face because they refuse to get in their ball. And that's something that I like doing. Is
Are you too good to go into your home?
Yeah, if you don't get in your pal sphere, you're coming with me one way or another, whether it's as a friend or as meat. I'll take it.
Wait, if you can you kill the pals?
Yes, there's literally a butcher knife that you could use to butcher your pal to get meat.
But if you shoot them and you put them in a pal sphere, do they get revived or are they dead?
No, when they're dead, they're dead. You can't put them in a pal sphere.
Oh, okay. So you just got to weaken them to the point where you can then throw the pal sphere and they have a higher likelihood of getting trapped or caught?
Yes. Well, just like Pokemon, if you lower their health, it increases your chance. And you actually, when you go to throw a pal sphere, it gives you the percentage chance you have to capture. And what happens is it ticks like 2 or 3 times around the circle. So let's say at first there's a 15% chance for the pal to be captured. Then there's a 50%, then a 60, then a 90. But depending on the level of pal sphere you're using and their health, it changes that percentage. So it's a neat thing, and it kind of gives you a good idea of what you're facing when you're trying to get somebody you're really fiending to capture. So it's a nice mechanic, and I appreciate that more than Pokemon's, just use an Ultra Sphere, use a Quick Ball, or whatever it is, where you don't know any of the percentages.
Is the tagline for the game, gotta pal sphere them all? Can't say gotta catch them all, but is it gotta pal sphere them all?
No, tagline for the game is don't let them kill you, because they will.
Don't let Nintendo see this.
Yeah, please don't sue. There was a pal I saw the other day. My friend had caught it and brought it back to our base. And I was like, oh, they're so getting sued. Look just like Darkrai.
Matt, what are Darkrai with his Cool Whip hair? One of my favorites. One of my favorite dark types.
There is absolutely a Pokemon with Cool Whip hair. Or a pal with Cool Whip.
I'm going to have to look that up. I also like, fun fact, Matt, I like to refer to Darkrai as Bread. His nickname is Bread. Do you get it? Darkrai?
Yeah, Darkrai.
Darkrai? Yeah, there you go. Yeah. All right. All right. Continue on with the social media comments before I bore everyone to death with my stupid jokes.
So Tricky put together a list of some comments from some of the TikTok videos. As you know, if you go to TikTok and search for Proven Gamer or YouTube Proven Gamer, he's been putting out a lot of shorts and reels and whatever is out there, 30 to 90-second clips, just covering the topics that we're discussing. So on the first line, he wanted to just thanks everyone for the engagement. There's been 71,000 views on all videos, 59,000 unique viewers, and 44 new followers. So we appreciate that. On the first video was we were talking about Bungie's troubles, uncertain future, Spark's concern over layoff fears, and I guess the name is iKite, I think, said, I've said it before and I'll say it again, Destiny is amazing product that has been horribly mismanaged, which I kind of agree. How about you, Alex?
I mean, I think that I read at one point after Sony had acquired Bungie that it was the highest grossing shooter game after Call of Duty. So as far as like success, I mean, it's generated a lot of money. I know they had their bumps early on with the first release, but it seems like they've gotten it together and they've, continued to support the game with content year after year. But, Bungie also seems to get in their own way. So, I mean, the fact that it could anything I see now negative is about Bungie, the studio, and not about the game itself, Destiny.
Yeah. Yield, any thoughts?
No, after the debacle, sort of, that was the start of Destiny 1, I haven't really given the game any more thought.
The next video was about Naughty Dog breaking the cycle with lack of new IPs, leaving fans break cycle with lack of new IPs, leaving fans questioning PS5 releases. User Joshua says, counterpoint, does there need to be? The Last of Us is an amazing universe, potential to see other parts of the worlds, different infected variants, traversals, so on and so forth. Which it kind of goes into the next topic, so I'll just jump right to it, where we discussed about Naughty Dog's mismanagement of the Last of Us franchise and how it sparked frustration. And there's a user, Lancelot, who says it's a hot take. If they didn't care, they wouldn't make games we want to play, which is kind of accurate, you know. Except for some devs, there are devs out there who just make it just because they think it'll get them rich. But some of our big name studios really want us to be able to play games that we love. And, another user said it's so easy to continue a franchise that is already popular. Take Call of Duty, for example. It's dog shit, but fans will pay anyway. Madden, FIFA, name any of those. Lancelot goes on to say, here's the problem. If they make a new IP, meaning Naughty Dog, people complain they didn't make a sequel. If they make a sequel, people complain because they didn't make a new game, which is another fair statement. And finally, there's always going to be people complaining. That's for anything too. That's not new. The problem is Naughty Dog has applies this to nearly every studio. And Tricky is explaining that some of his things are responses to these people. Thank you. I appreciate that. So what do you guys think about, we talked about Naughty Dog's mismanagement of the Last of Us franchise, but what do you think about the idea that nobody will be happy, that people will complain if it's not a sequel, people will complain if it's not new? Yield, what do you think?
Oh, that's a catch-22 either way. I mean, Naughty Dog for the longest time, or at least currently, had two groups doing two games. And so, I mean, granted, it was the Uncharted and The Last of Us, but they were, cycling games. And so they were always moving forward. And then once Drunkman took over, it's just been 100% The Last of Us. So if you are a Last of Us fan, then yes, you want to stay in the universe and love it for all it's worth. If you're a Naughty Dog fan, you want them to move on. I am of the latter, and I don't want them to move on because The Last of Us is making the money, people love it. So obviously you're going to make more of them, but I want something else from you because now you've got a game a multiplayer that you've invested in that's been shelved. So you've wasted years of development for nothing. So, I mean, it just, yeah.
Alex?
So I think it is a fair point, but also I think for me, and this is just speaking for me, I think that the way they left off with The Last of Us Part 2, it almost feels unfinished, and I want another sequel. And so I don't want them to continue just to make sequels because in the end that gets, it gets old. Uncharted 3 could have been a perfect spot to end Uncharted, but, they decided to make one more game. And Uncharted 4 was a really good game. And I think, by the end of it, it's like, okay, I can see the justification behind this, but you could easily have ended at 3 and been just fine. So typically, like after a trilogy, it's not always the same, but after a trilogy, I'm, ready to move on. I feel like you've had plenty of time to tell the story you want to tell. And I think that just The Last of Us in that case needs another chapter to make to make me feel like it's final. Now they could always do stuff with the story where I'm like, well, that doesn't. That's open to it too. But we'll see what they do with the next game, which I think has come out is Last of Us Part 3, or at least they're making it. But yeah, I understand the point. I just think that there's a certain point where it's like the story's been told and I'm ready to move on now, versus just saying, I only want new games or I only want sequels. Yes, I want sequels, but once I'm full and I feel like everything's been told, I want new games. So it's a little bit of both.
Next up is a clip where we talk about the boycott on Harry Potter failing, and that one of us had talked about that people were going to boycott after Pokemon Sword and Shield because of the cruddy content and quality of Pokemon games. So a user, Joe Tech, said that's an insane comparison. Most people buying don't know anything about the reasons they would be boycotted. A much larger portion is children and people who have lives, which I guess that doesn't count for us. Then he goes on to say J.K. Rowling being transphobic is well known, and so many more public figures talked about it and supported the boycott. It existed outside of Twitter. To avoid any further discussion on that topic, we're going to move on. Then next clip is when we discussed, are we expecting too much from game developers? And a user, Hunter Hoff, said, if Red Dead 2 quality could come out in 2018, GTA 6 will be immense. Tricky responds, we don't doubt it'll be great, but it's not going to make everyone happy. Another user chimed in, Hellion V24, said, expect too much. There are indie developers making better games and listening more. When a single person does better than millions of dollars, ? And Tricky responds, too many chefs, not enough cooks. And the user agrees with that, just seems lazy, like Baldur's Gate is the most in-depth game they've played in years, and they tell us not to expect that from AAA companies. So going back to that topic, Alex, are we expecting too much from AAAs? Or as I think Ubisoft said, their quadruple A game, Skull and Bones?
Yeah, we'll see about that. I did see where one person playing the beta said playing that game made them want to go back and play. All it did was make them want to play Sea of Thieves again. But I think a lot of times AAA developers in the mindset that we have to always keep people engrossed, we have to keep people playing for a certain amount of time, and just bigger is better. We saw with the Arkham games. Every Arkham game continually got bigger and bigger. So it seems like these developers have set themselves up for failure by constantly having to add more and more to games for people to be happy. I don't think that's the case. I just think that that's how they feel, what they feel like they need to do. So in a way, like, I don't think that because I mean, we've shown like gamers as a whole can be happy with an indie developed game. They don't have to be a 60-hour giant massive thing. So I think if anything, developers feeling like they always have to outdo themselves is kind of what's at the heart of the problem, and not necessarily our expectations. Because maybe some people expected every game to be bigger and bigger, but that's because of the developers themselves and the standard they've set.
Okay. Yield. How do you feel about that idea that we might be expecting too much? Or did I already ask you? Sorry, I might be confused.
You haven't. I don't know what to say. I mean, yeah, I don't really know how to answer that, because sometimes, yes, we are expecting too much, and sometimes no, because if you set a precedent of this is what we do, then, if you're always, if they've always raised the bar, then you expect them to raise the bar even more. So,
next video we're discussing was the debate on piracy, where Alex famously came in and said, if paying isn't owning, then piracy isn't stealing. And
well, that was based on what other people had said. I didn't come up with that. Other people have said that.
No, it was commented on in the clip. And then user Gozo Glager 9000, which sounds like a sex finisher. Piracy wasn't stealing to begin with. And Tricky said, we will agree to disagree. Gojo responds, can't steal it if the owner still has it. Tricky says that is just an ignorant statement. And then Gojo said, nah, it's pretty nuanced. So,
well, I mean, Gojo has a point. You didn't steal it if the owner still owns it. No, I mean, yeah. They may not have got all the money they wanted out of it, but they still own it. They can still sell it somewhere else. You didn't steal it.
Well, until Nintendo goes broke because I downloaded an emulated version of The Legend of Zelda, I will not hear any other argument. Alex?
I guess the point in that is, well, I don't own the code to the game. I didn't break into, Sony or whatever and steal the code, so it's not piracy because I just took a copy of the game. But you're also, it's the same thing as going into, because honestly, if like that whole statement of if it's not, if buying is not owning, then piracy is not stealing. I don't agree that piracy is not stealing, because piracy absolutely is stealing. It's like going into a store, taking some food or a piece of clothing, an article of clothing, and walking out and not paying for it. That's stealing. So I mean, it's the same as you're getting to play a game and you didn't pay for it. That's stealing. We can all talk about what is ownership and what is not, but just because company, there's a story that came out about Funimation shutting down, and all the purchases from that are being revoked. All the the licenses for people to watch that content is being revoked because it's being Funimation's being rolled into Crunchyroll. So I mean, I get that people are pissed about ownership of stuff, especially when it comes to digital content, but piracy is absolutely stealing. I don't care how you want to try to justify it. So
that's all good points. Then we've got the clip that was talking about the superiority of PC gaming, mastering movement and shooting with keyboard and mouse. And this was a long discussion about using a mouse and keyboard aim as opposed to controller, and how aim assist either levels or exceeds the playing field. And as a result, user Antwap said aim assist isn't to just help, it's because it's impossible to turn instantly. If the stick is on the right, it has to pass the center to go left. And Sorkaris said the problem is that aim assist in a lot of games overcompensates. Your average player on keyboard and mouse will almost always lose to an average controller user, and I assume that's because they're talking about when the controller user is using aim assist. And I kind of disagree. Sorkaris also says, now I feel the room for improvement on keyboard and mouse is much bigger, but then you get the upper skill levels and people start incorporating controllers. Either doing the weird left-hand controller for movement and aim assist on the right hand, aims and shoots, or they use the emulator, which makes the keyboard and mouse run as controller, because aim assist is still so way better. And then finally, Slater says you can't reach a high rank on any game that has aim assist on controller if you play on PC. It depends. And speaking as practical experience, aim assist sucks when you have to be faster than a computer. Because if you're using a mouse and keyboard, you're not going to beat the computer 9 times out of 10. But there's still something to be said that no matter what, you will always be more accurate with a mouse. So it's an interesting thing that we finally have the cross-play comparison to go out there and do it and figure out if who truly is better, controller with aim assist or mouse and keyboard. I still think mouse and keyboard will always be faster. Alex, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm only one side of this yin and yang. So having, played with controllers all my life and not wanting to deal with having to update or buy a PC to play games. I mean, it's always been said that, controls, if you put up a mouse and keyboard, experienced user of a mouse and keyboard against an experienced, player on a controller, the person, especially in shooter games, with the mouse and keyboard is going to win. But so I just kind of have to take that as kind of gospel, not, using, and to be fair, I stay away from a lot of online multiplayer games, because why am I going to just get killed every 5 seconds and not enjoy my experience when I could just not have to deal with that and play mostly single player stuff. So, it sounds, I will defer to you, Matt, on this, because you, having played both console and PC, would know certainly better than I would.
Yeah. Yield, I know pretty much all of your experiences using a controller, but how do you feel about that comparison?
Well, it makes sense, because if all you got to do is click the mouse where you want to shoot, naturally it's easier to aim that way.
But you also got to get your fingers used to using the keyboard buttons, the keys.
Well, but that's us going from controller to keyboard. If that's what you've always played, it's natural for you.
Yeah,
and I really don't use aim assist even with controller, because I feel that's cheating.
Not cheating if it's built into the game.
I know. I 100% agree.
Unlike Tricky's programmable controllers.
I just feel that it's just not in the fairness of the game.
Every time somebody takes a jab at Tricky, I'm waiting for a response, but
Yeah.
of course, the one time he's not going to give us one.
I'm sure he's typing something furiously at the moment. Then on to YouTube, just to cover some of those.
Whoa, sir. You're
Yep.
definitely not skipping one of those other ones.
Well, it's kind of covered in this first YouTube topic, but if you would like me to cover, I will cover in that Hieronymus Geldrich said that Crash Team Racing is better, though, in my rant about PlayStation making inferior products. Once again, proven, mind you, by the scores that have come out for Foam Stars, aka Splatoon Lite, Splatoon Worse,
Square-Tune?
Square-Tune.
I haven't seen any of them. Are they pretty terrible?
It's middling. It's average. I'm not going to say it's a bad game, but it is evident by the reviews and users. And what people are saying is that the microtransactions are egregious, the skill level is not that great, and that some of the graphics look great from what they say, but they say that it's the drop-ins, drop-outs are bad, as well as the loop is just not there. Some weapons are locked to some characters, and it's just not a great time. It's serviceable, and it's good that it came out on PS Plus.
All right, now we can move on to the YouTube comments. I just saw that one. It was not going to let you barrel through it or soar over it to get to YouTube.
Well, I will go back because Tricky is basically begging us to cover this one topic, and
he ain't on the show, so
yeah, I'll do him this solid.
He's sitting there eating ice cream, playing Suicide Squad. He can. He's
not on the show not of his own volition, so I'll help him out here. It's all work. It's in response to the video of is Microsoft pushing the agenda too fast? Gaming community reacts. And they asked Bing, and Bing said Microsoft listened to gamers with the Xbox One, and they lost the console wars because of it. You push the agenda before everyone asks, and you come out on top. I don't know what to make of that, Tricky.
Neither do I. How is it funny?
That was a lot of words to say something.
I don't get it. I guess I wasn't there for that topic, and I have no idea what that means.
Also, nobody uses Bing. Nobody.
I sometimes forget I use Bing, and I on my work computer, I should say, and I visually shudder, and I go quickly type Google.
Hey, I do want to point out, though, we mentioned the Dreamcast earlier. Dreamcast had online games before anyone else, and didn't help Dreamcast. Didn't help Dreamcast at all because the community wasn't ready for it. Even the PlayStation 2 really didn't have a lot of. Like Battlefront, I think, and some of the games did have online connectivity, but Sega tried to push that agenda too soon, and it didn't help them at all.
Well, the connectivity wasn't there, and I remember because to play Choo Choo Rocket online, mind you, I had to run a 100-foot RJ15, I think it was, cable from my Dreamcast to the other room where there was a second phone connection. I had to make a freenet.0, freezero.net account. I would sign on. Also, I could just play Choo Choo Rocket online. Then they came out with the broadband connector and really didn't have broadband. I went to college and I carried my Dreamcast and I had the broadband connector and I ordered it. The problem was at the time I didn't understand that certain items or equipment was restricted on network. So I didn't know how to connect it. It wasn't until my senior year with the Xbox that I was able to figure out and go to IT and get it whitelisted for their network so I could play things online. It just, the infrastructure wasn't there at the time. But again, Sega and Dreamcast were ahead of their time with that aspect. And plenty of people had fun playing Phantasy Star online.
Yeah, but again, they tried to push it too soon, though. Because like you said, the infrastructure wasn't there. So, take that, Bing. That's why I don't trust you.
Well, evidently Bing, what Tricky says, Bing was a user, not the Bing search engine, which it seems like they're on point with making nonsensical arguments as their namesake. Finally, onto YouTube. 19.1 views on all videos, 18.2 unique user views, 140.
19.1 is that do we want to brag about 19? How do you have 19.1?
Okay. Tricky is editing in real time. 19.1K users. 19.1K views. 18.2K unique viewers. Thanks, Tricky. Those are very important points to keep in the notes. 143.8 hours total watched, average video of 30 to 45 seconds, and got 14 new subs off of it. So that's good.
Thanks to our 14 new subs.
I appreciate you all being here. PlayStation versus Nintendo. Who does exclusives better? And this is what I alluded to earlier, is that user James CN9Ds. Nintendo has the worst exclusives. And I pretty much can't read anything else after what they wrote because it's all nonsensical about Nintendo being bad. But I will read it.
Do you want me to read it?
I will read it. I will read it. They've been releasing the same game for decades. True. And for some reason, people eat it up. Also true. How much can Smash Brothers really change? Not much. Doesn't need to. How many times can you play a Mario scroller? More times than I can play a Crash Team Racing. The only way...
That's because you're just not good. You just don't have the skill.
Get good. The only way Nintendo is able to stay viable is to make its current system obsolete, forcing everyone to move to a new system where they will, of course, have no access to their old library of games. Not true.
Not true. I was gonna say, yeah, Nintendo's been doing it the right way for years.
Forcing them to buy more of Nintendo's unoriginal crap.
Well, hold on.
Well, James, we will disagree.
Well, hold on. If you remember, those games that you bought on the Wii shop didn't carry over. They got stuck on your Wii. Right?
Accurate.
You couldn't play them on the Wii U or the Switch. So have we seen them actually, when it comes to digital purchases, since it was tied to the console and not an account, we haven't seen them actually carry that over yet from another generation to another, right?
And that is why it's morally right to pirate old Nintendo games. I say old like, yeah.
So not the Mario Wonders or anything like that.
Not the Mario Wonders. No, that's a new game. And Mario Wonders was fantastic, James. I had a great time playing it as a Mario scroller.
Well, to be fair, I mean, Splatoon aside, yes. But we see what happens when they try to make new IPs. Because anyone play ARMS? 30 minutes after I played ARMS, I was bored of ARMS.
It was were your arms tired?
It was fucking Punch-Out and Power Stone, and somehow it was terrible.
Listen, here's the thing. It was a new game on a new system. I 1-2 switch. That's my answer to what is Nintendo doing. Good job, Nintendo, making trash on day one. But they also released it with The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, one of the best games ever, Tricky. Oh, did I say that? And then the next comment, top tier games for free, Game Pass day one, just talking about, releasing your games on day and date. And then user TCTM1MY said, not every game on Game Pass is AAA, and Microsoft easily makes billions annually on Game Pass. It has no trouble making a profit. Alex?
I mean, I haven't been part of the earnings call. I don't know what is... I suspect that even if their games division loses, Microsoft is still fine because they make more than enough money to cover that. But, I mean, I haven't seen one of their quarterly financial sheets or whatever, so I can't necessarily confirm or deny what was just said. But, we've seen a lot of the subscription models, especially for TV and movie content, like they continually raising the prices because we've heard, that certain services are not making money. Peacock lost a lot of money. Paramount has lost money on their services. So I'm assuming like a lot of those things, the streaming services are not necessarily profitable for the companies that maintain them, but that's where the viewers are. So they kind of have to keep them up and just keep raising the prices. So whether Game Pass, I mean, I've not heard that Game Pass is taking a loss or that Microsoft is in the red because of its game studios. Again, I'd have to look at the financial data, but I think it's hard for a lot of people to believe that for what people pay a month for those games, that they're actually, making money hand over fist. Microsoft as a company might be making hand over fist, but their game division, who knows?
Well, here's the thing, and I'll go to yield in a second. Again, 33.3 million Game Pass subscribers at the end of 2023, whether they were active, whether they were lapsed, what lowest level of Game Pass, I think it was like $9 or something. 9 times 33 million is a lot of money for Microsoft. That's what I'm going to leave that at. Yield, what do you think about that?
Well, here, before we go to Yield, I will say that you got to remember that most of the games on Game Pass are either previously released Microsoft games, or so like legacy titles, yes, or brand new games, which they don't put out a ton of those. They put out 2 Microsoft Studios games, put out 2 last year, I think, unless there's a smaller game that I'm not thinking of. But it was Redfall and Starfield. But most of the games are third party. They rely a lot on the third parties to help support Game Pass. So every game on Game Pass isn't necessarily from Microsoft. So it's not like they're spending the money in the R&D to make those games. They're just relying on them to be there and to help make them money and to pull people in to be subscribers. Now, yes, they may have to pay to have those games on Game Pass, but it's not like Microsoft is funding a AAA game to put on Game Pass every month. There are some years when they put out maybe one Microsoft Studios game. When Psychonauts 2 came out, that was a Double Fine game, but Double Fine, started the project before they went to Microsoft, then became a part of Microsoft, and it was released underneath the Microsoft Studios game label. But I don't know what else they put out that year besides technically that. So most years Microsoft isn't really putting out a ton of games. So.
And finally, Yield.
Until we see numbers that are just solely on Game Pass, and you take out the Microsoft part of the money, I still have a hard time seeing how giving your game away free, unless you tag on a bunch of microtransactions with it, I just don't see how it's profitable.
And having Larian Studios basically say we're not going to put Baldur's Gate 3 on Game Pass is telling, because it shows that if you have confidence in your game, you don't necessarily need
people are going to
Pass.
buy it. Yep.
It doesn't necessarily have to be on Game Pass. Games don't have to be there.
And Alex said a lot too. We beat a dead horse here. Make games people want to play.
All right. Well, that is the end of our social hour, so we can move on to the topic of the week.
I didn't even have a drink during social hour. Oh, Matt, you want to turn it back over to me, huh?
Yep, that is. You are more than welcome to lead on the rest of the show.
All right. Well, Matt, thank you for taking that over as I try to close some of the windows on my phone and get back to our agenda. Great show so far, fellas. Before we get out of here, we got to cover one more thing, and that's our topic of the week. We talked. We got the numbers from our estimates of the PlayStation 5 and Xbox sales from a Take-Two presentation. So only fitting that we end the show and our topic of the week with the Take-Two CEO and comments from him. This comes from IGN.com and Rebecca Valentine. The headline reads, Take-Two CEO says competing Xbox and PlayStation consoles are a benefit, but not a necessity. Rebecca Valentine, I already said that. Sorry. Well, I'll give you double credit, Rebecca. It's fine. Well, 3 times the credit. In recent weeks, rumors of Microsoft exiting the hardware business have been flying. Phil Spencer promises us an announcement in the form of a future business update scheduled for some time the week of February 12th. However, Take-Two CEO Strauss Zelnick spoke on the future of the games media, as well as whether or not having 2 competing consoles was a necessity. And, forgetting the PC exists and also that Nintendo's a console, but, whatever. Zelnick answered that following on if it was important for his business and the health of the video game market to have Xbox competing with PlayStation. He replied, I think it's a benefit. Do I think it's ultimately a necessity? No, but I do think it's a benefit. The statement comes after previous comments by Mr. Zelnick indicated that the production of a physical media is not as costly as it was 30 years ago. By today's standards, discs can be on shelves 5 days after an order. However, 30 years ago, cartridges required longer lead times and excessive inventory was a real concern. Sorry, whenever I see the name Strauss Zelnick, I feel the need to add some gusto to it. Honestly, Strauss Zelnick probably doesn't give a shit whether PlayStation or Xbox exists. As long as there is a console to play his games on, GTA, Red Dead, what does he care, honestly? I mean, really, the competition in the video games market really matters to us, the gamers, because it affects the quality of the games that we get and how much we pay. Does that affect Strauss Zelnick if he releases GTA and everybody wants to play it? No, not at all, because either they're going to buy it on Xbox and PlayStation, or they're just going to buy it on PlayStation and PC or wherever. So I think his comments, about it being a benefit, well, honestly, if developers only had to make for one console box, only had to develop for the PlayStation 5, I'm sure it would make things easier on them. But again, it's more for the consumers that competition's important.
And
I guess
Nintendo did pretty good for themselves and at the beginning, and everybody had to develop for them.
I think Mr. Zelnick is forgetting something in that
people don't really like him.
Well, no, I'm pretty sure he's well aware of that every day.
If you make games, they will come.
If you only have one system to put your game out on, maybe you don't have as much negotiating power as you thought you did.
You mean as far as the cut that the company takes from the sales of the game? As far as,
you want to sell on PlayStation. Hey, you want to put your GTA game out on PlayStation? Maybe, we renegotiate this fee and what we do here. Now, certain companies will be fine. I think Take-Two really is in the power position. Like, okay, you want to have a PlayStation without a GTA? Fine, we'll sell on PC. But some of those smaller developers, you want to put your game on PlayStation? Okay, let's talk negotiation on fees. What can we do?
Yeah, but do you think if Sony ever did that, try to twist Take-Two's arm like that Take-Two wouldn't just be like, you know what? We're just going to create our own portal where you can play our games from there, and fuck you, Sony.
Well, we've seen that they've tried doing that on the PC with the different stores, and they've all come crawling back to Steam. But the more interesting point is I'm talking about, no, Take-Two, that's not the issue. It's the smaller developers who would be penalized by less competition.
Yeah, fair enough. Definitely gives you less negotiating power. Although if you are a small developer and Sony screws you over and tries to, get as much money out of they can as you, it's like, well, we'll just go develop for Nintendo then, I guess. We're going to make games for the Switch and we're out of here.
Nintendo's putting everything on their system.
Yeah, Yield, do you have any further comments on this? Do you see any other benefits or negatives to there being just one game company putting out a console box for the home?
The one is you don't have competition. In my opinion, the exclusives drive, the competition, where it's look at what our studios are doing on our system. And then the other company, these are what our studios are doing on our system. And it helps push the industry forward. I mean, where would we be if Sony and Microsoft had decided they didn't want to take over Nintendo's monopoly?
I mean, well, you had Genesis in there before to kind of stop Nintendo from taking over the world. And once the Dreamcast had gone by the wayside and they were a software company, you had, Sony fully entrenched with the PlayStation 2 and Microsoft had come around by then. So I think that even if it's like just one console box, it's like, oh, well, they have to buy stuff on our console. Well, Atari showed that you can kill off an industry or nearly kill off an industry with just putting out crap, making people buy whatever crap you put out. And Nintendo had to come in and save everything with the NES. So, it's not just like, you'll talk about pushing the industry forward with innovation. It's not like just having one console out there. And, like I said, Nintendo would still be around. So if I wasn't liking what Sony was putting out, I could just go buy a Nintendo console. I bought most of the Nintendo consoles anyway. But just having, just Sony, it's not like Sony could just put out a bunch of shit, because that would be a second coming of the death of the video game industry, if not for PC and Switch. So there would at least be other options. But no, I definitely think all good points. But, I think the answer is Strauss Zelnick, as someone who has dealt with these companies, probably need to give a better answer than that. But like I said, it just doesn't give a shit. He doesn't care. He's like, GTA is going to sell anyway, so what do I care? That's my view of him. He's going to answer a question, but it's not going to be the in-depth, brain tickler that most people are expecting, that we really deserve, because really you need more to answer that question than what he gave. But, it's Strauss, so. All right, topic of the week done. Guys, Matt, you got anything else you want to add?
Nope.
All right. Well, that is going to be it for episode 608 of the podcast. Before we get out of here, let's go ahead and give some shout-outs. Matt, I will throw to you first.
Shout out to the community. Shout out to the people in chat tonight. V and Redbeard Rick were the ones I saw most active. Shout out to the Channel 3 community. Come on out to channel3.gg to gamify your social media and earn some XP while talking with games with your friends.
What does Channel 3 think of this Mario Kart Crash Team Racing debate?
If I were you, Alex, I'd stay away from Channel 3.
Oh, yeah? I will come in wearing my Komodo Brothers shirt.
When they run nightly/weekly Mario Kart tournaments,
Nitrous
you may be a little
oxide coming at you. Wait, which Mario Kart do they play?
8.
Okay.
The superior Mario Kart.
I wish it was Mario Kart Wii. Mario Kart
Even
Wii
though
is the best Mario Kart.
I disagree. My favorite was Mario Kart Double
Dash.
Double Dash. Yeah,
that's just because you're a PD Piranha fan, right? You're a PD Piranha fan.
PD Piranha is awesome.
I'm glad you didn't say the SNES one, because I'm sorry, in hindsight, that was not a very good Mario Kart.
No. I try emulating that now, and I'm like, wow, I can't believe this actually took off. Shout out to Alex and Yield. Thank you for dealing with my last minute changes today. Shout out to Tricky. Hope you're feeling better. Feel better soon. Sorry about your butt. And shout out to my wife, V. Thank you for everything that you do.
He's just gassy, Matt. There's nothing wrong with his butt. Yield, sir.
Shout out to Alex.
Tricky's confusion.
Alex and Matt for recording. Shout out to Tricky. Get well soon. Shout out to V for everything she does behind the scenes. Shout out to Rick for hanging out in the Twitch chat tonight. Shout out to everybody who hangs out in the community. Gareth for your community event that you're putting on. Shout out to Harry Balls on You, Prepare to Die, or Scum, the Brain 76, Homer Gets Stuffed. That's our main OG Helldiver 2 squadron. And shout out to all the Pins and Mounds of the Hordem. Later.
And I'll lead us home from here. Shout out to the listeners, our community, the fuel to the fire, the Trophy Wars. We're on 608, and it's all because of you all. Thank you all for supporting us, whether this is your first show or your 100th. We appreciate you so very much. So thank you for being here. A shout out to Tricky for running things in the background. And I will say, hopefully you're getting plenty of rest, sir. And if you want to play some Suicide Squad and eat some ice cream, by George, go ahead and do it. Shout out to Matt and to Yield as well. Thank you for recording with me tonight, making the Super Bowl Sunday a little bit more exciting, since I didn't really care about the big game, but yeah, thanks for keeping me company on this Sunday night. And last but not least, give a shout out to my loving and awesome girlfriend Ashley. I love you, hun. And yeah, that's my shout outs. And with that, we will put a bow on episode 608. Thank you all very much for joining us. And until next week, happy trophy hunting.
See ya.
The theme song is Venus by the band Even off their album Zenith. Permission granted by the band and 12 Stone Records. You can find them on Facebook by going to www.facebook.com/evenphilippines.
We'll do 5 seconds of silence.